Good evening, I'm Dharmendra Gordon, and this is the Vegan Zenergy Experience number 30. Welcome to everybody that's here participating and those that will be listening later to the recording. I invite everybody now to just take a moment to allow yourself to arrive here and now into the present moment. Allow your mind to release any activity that might be occurring there intentionally, and just allow your heart to feel yourself and feel into your space and just feel however you're feeling now. And then just settle down into your belly. So you're in your present space here and now, and still and silent. As I share what tonight's theme is. It's about the 19th life code, which is the law of necessity. It's all about needs and securing whatever resources are necessary to sustain those needs. And needs range from food to family to God. Obviously, we need food in order for our physical vehicles to subsist. And we need families so that our species can continue across the generations. And we also need some conception of an origin from which the universe and all life has sprung. With food, there enters the necessity of having territory in order to grow the food, and with territory comes the creation of borders, boundaries, and dividing lines. Once boundaries are created, then naturally those inside the boundaries are considered family, or group, or clan, and those outside that arbitrary division are considered strangers, or at best neighbors. And of course, now there arises the necessity for those inside the boundaries to protect their resources, and also the necessity to continue making, creating, and having access to those resources. Those resources literally grow up out of the earth and provide either directly or as raw materials to be processed, the substances we need to maintain our very existence. Hence, it is no surprise that man early on started attributing higher powers to the earth, the sun, the weather, the elements, etc., as he came to see that all these phenomena played an essential role in the creation of his resources that were so critical to the smooth functioning and maintenance of the various aspects of his planetary existence. Early man also conceived that the source from which he received all his resources was, like himself, in need of something in exchange for all of that which it was giving. The reason being is that sometimes that source from which man received so much didn't always produce in the way that was expected, and this was interpreted by early man as a sign that the source was somehow displeased with man. This was the beginning of ritual sacrifice, a barbaric practice in which one of the youth of the tribe was systematically killed, and that the releasing of the life force of that youth was thought to be a kind of food for the higher power they were trying to appease. This practice was eventually eclipsed with the substitution of animals, which through all kinds of mutations has come down to the present day as the daily animal holocaust practiced by the vast empires of animal exploitation all over the planet. From this, it is not so hard to see that the practice of killing sentient beings and eventually eating them is based on a fundamental misunderstanding of thinking that it was a necessary act to placate an angry God that didn't really exist in the first place except in the imaginations of primitive man. Eventually, man came to imagine special types of gods that were existed in some unknown way through various species of animals, birds, and other types of creatures. And then man could, based on that fantasy, enter into some kind of special spiritual connection with the spirit of whatever animal whose life he wanted to take, as a result of which he then felt he was given a special permission, as a result of his asking, of course, to go ahead and take that animal's life. And by his special ritual, he imagined he was given clearance to do so. So the shadow of this life code permits for the holding onto of customs that serve no real or necessary purpose in the modern world anymore, as it has been inculcated into the minds of most of modern humanity through generations and generations of repetition the supposed necessity of taking so much from the animal kingdoms in order to support our lifestyles. And all of that is based on a fantasy created in the minds of primitive man as a coping strategy when they didn't understand why the availability of their resources diminished at various times, and out of which was initiated the practice of ritual sacrifice. It is as if, as a result of this original practice, there is now in the collective psyche of man a rationale behind every vile act as long as it is done in the name of some higher power. This also extends into the realm of relationship in the form of codependency, where one individual overtly or covertly puts another individual on a pedestal, and then through various forms of adulation proceeds to manipulate the relationship in order to obtain various resources from that one on the pedestal. And all of this kind of behavior arises in the modern day as a result of the vast hoarding of resources by those very few individuals who are part of a lineage of beings who created and initiated our current economic structure, which allows for and perpetuates such a vampiristic and criminal hoarding of resources in the first place. There are a certain number of sectors of commerce that sustain the modern collective existence, and all of these are held firmly in place and controlled by families of the super rich and have been for a very long time. Hence, the god of modern man has become money, for in the current economic scenario, that is how one is able to procure the resources ever so necessary for a decent life. So what we have in the modern day, due to the unbelievably unequal distribution of resources, is a culture of acquisition, focused solely on remedying the lack of resources across all sectors of the collective life of humanity, due to the seemingly unending greed that powers the manipulation of our entire economic structure by the families of the super wealthy who continue to live a life that is absolutely out of touch with the world they are perpetuating. Once one wakes up to this situation through beginning to become aware of the vast misappropriation of resources currently taking place, it is as if one regains one's senses and is then able to tune into what is actually going on in this world behind the false front presented by the mainstream media through all its forms of false advertising, through the intentional deletion, distortion, and generalization of information that is manipulated in such a way so as to serve the narcissistic purpose of the powers that be in service to the super rich. It is truly at such a point that one stops chasing that media perpetuated carrot on a stick and begins to become sensitive to one's environment so that they can start to assess the situation they are in and what possible actions they can start to take to begin to address the imbalance in the distribution of resources that currently exists in our contemporary culture across all sectors of our collective existence on this planet. This resensitization not only allows one to see what is presently occurring in terms of resource distribution, but it also allows one to start tuning into, in a much more intimate way, other life forms, and to be able to literally enter into synchronicity with their consciousness in terms of their current life experience. The result of such an experience adds an incredible depth and richness to the awareness capacity of such an individual, and the ability to enter into the living experience of other types of creatures we share the planet with imbues one with an expanded sense of compassion for all living creatures, and that can be sensed clearly through the unique way in which the aura touches others very specifically and unique to each life form that one is encountering in the moment. This used to be the exclusive capacity of shamans in the past, but with the shifting of the great age, this capacity and other gifts of the spirit are being made available to all of humanity, should they wish to develop them. Through this life code, the mutation is already beginning to manifest as more and more people are beginning to awaken from the collective trance that artificially separates us from the rest of the natural world. And as a result, we are starting to take into account all of life and how it interrelates with us, through us, and as us, through every decision we make, every step we take as we strive to bring about a better, more harmonious world that is deeply in touch with the pulse of all living forms. This holistic understanding that is directly in touch with the current of the living energy that flows through all of life and provides through various means for the sustenance of all living creatures is the entry into the Siddha of the law of necessity known as interconnectedness. When you breathe in harmony with all of life breathes in harmony with you, and you are put directly in touch with the consciousness of the earth as a subtle guidance begins to inform your every thought, word, and deed, through a vast network of intelligence of which you are one singular, unique expression. And such is the magic of existence, that it centers all of this into and through you, this consciousness of the whole, as you step into and embody your true role on this planet as caretaker and steward, being the most advanced organic life form that has evolved on this planet. This truly gives depth and fullness to the phrase being in harmony with nature, and takes it even a step further, as we are nature, all of nature. And the exact combination of all that goes into the makeup of that nature is unique to each and every one of us. And that is why we are all needed in this grand play in the evolution of consciousness through organic life. We are each of us a unique expression of the whole, literally and figuratively, and whatever happens with us also happens with the whole. We are much greater than we think we are, and we have a great responsibility towards all of life, should we choose to rise to the occasion and choose with our free will to encompass that. And that is easier than you might think, as on the inner planes, the statement "ask and it shall be given" is a reality. For the minute you take full responsibility for your presence here, all of life's intelligence is available to you, and you'll be shown directly what you must do through great nature herself. And further, being one with nature also includes all the wisdom of humanity that has ever been developed up to this very moment. That is also accessible to your consciousness, according to the law of necessity. So as we can see, the law of necessity eventually puts us in touch with the loving wisdom and intelligence of all living creatures. And the decisions we make from that point on will be in the interests of all parties. And now that is a party we could all partake of. Hi, Lucy. Okay, I'm going to bring up the little PowerPoint here so everybody can see what's going on tonight. And I think tonight I'm gonna. Anybody else would like to start this evening with the shadow of clinging? Please go ahead, and if nobody goes, then I'll go. But I just kind of want to open it. In fact, I know, Lucy, you don't have so much time, so maybe you might want to jump in and start with the shadow of clinging.
Can you make it a little bit bigger?
Yeah. I think. Let me see. Can you see that there, Nancy?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay,
I
great.
have to use my iPad. My computer died. So.
Oh, okay.
I did read the email with this stuff before, but there's a lot in it, so it helps to read.
Yeah, it's good to just get a. It's all about. This is the shadow. This is the life code of. It's called the law of necessity. It's all about needs and resource distribution. But I'll go ahead and go because Nancy, I mean, I can see. I'll allow her the time to catch up. I'll go ahead and start. Yeah, it's very interesting how this one grabs a hold of us. It's part of our root center. So it's a very imperative pressure that we have to deal with, that we have to have certain resources to keep our body alive, to stay healthy, to keep us protected from the elements, to have a space to exist in that we call ours, that allows us, you know, time to be and process things apart from the public world out there. So there's a lot of things that come into what that's about, and also the need for relationship with others, and also the need for some kind of connection to the source. So there's a whole spectrum of needs that is that are pressures. They're literally pressures that drive us to seek out the resources that we need in order to make that stuff happen. And so at the shadow level, and especially in this world, it's set up where, as I spoke about in the reading at the beginning, that it is so hoarded by very few, very super rich families, and it's made very difficult unless you're willing to go through a lot of hoopla and all kinds of processes to create enough money to, you know, live super abundantly. You basically are always going to be in a kind of a needy space, and you're it's almost like it almost forces you to be clingy with everything you have, because you only have so much. And it's not like you have, like these super rich families, access to anything and everything. And you're pretty much those families, you're born into it. And if you're not born into that, you're not going to be part of that. So that's the lot for the rest of us in this life. So I mean, there are moments I think we all experience throughout the day where we worry about what, the little we do have, especially in the world nowadays. I mean, how safe is it? How long are we going to be able to keep it? Is it going to keep going like this? And that brings up a subtle kind of like, a grasping energetically, like we want to hold on to it. We want to hold on to what little we got, and it's really it's challenging. It's challenging at times. I mean, and even in the sense of our breathing and clinging on to life, especially now with COVID going on and that kind of thing. And we're faced with it out there, especially as vegans. We're faced with watching the poor animals out there that are clinging to life too. What little they have of it in these horrible places that they're raised in and have to exist in. And it's so this particular Gatus life code is pretty. It's got some pretty gnarly stuff in it because of the way resources are kind of imbalanced, very imbalanced situation of how the resources are held on to. I mean, if you see the super rich, they're all clinging so hard to their power and their necessity to control it all. And I mean, really, when I think of the shadow of clinging, I think more of the people who are the vampires, the incredible vampires that the super rich are, and how they're just sucking from all of us. They have no right to. They just set it up that way and then created false systems of economy, and then managed to get the system to, control the resources. Then they could hire the people that, can enforce that, through violence and all. So it's a pretty interesting thing. But where I see the clinging happening the most is with those super rich, because they're the ones that are holding on to so much that really doesn't honestly belong to them. They didn't earn it. They just took it. And so they're the great thieves. And so anyway, all of that just, not that it's so much about clinging, but in seeing all that, it just makes me kind of have a real sense of kind of like, geez, I mean, what are we, what a crappy place for most of us to be in this world, to have to deal with idiots like that who have no sense of how to create a beautiful world except for themselves. They have such a small mind that they can only hold on to it for themselves, and everybody else, who cares about them? That's really their attitude. And yet it's because of all of us that they have all that money. They don't even realize that. They just assume it's their right to have it, which it isn't. It's that they have no right to it whatsoever. They took it early on and then created a lineage that holds on to it. So that's kind of how I feel about all that. It's kind of, there's a lot of energy in me, from anger to feelings of helplessness to all kinds of things when it comes to seeing how the clinging comes from the top. And by the top, I don't mean higher than us. I just mean the top of the money chain. That's all. Those in the top of the triangle of the money chain. They're not definitely, they're actually a lot lower than any of us because of who they are and what they do. I pity their souls. I don't think they have any left, actually. I think when they go, they're just going to be dust because they abused it all. But anyway, I don't want to wax religious because I'm not really religious. That's my opening to the shadow of clinging and what's happening with resources. How I feel about that. Going on mute.
A word that came to my mind from reading this and listening to you was colonialism, and how, while we're talking about letting go of things that are tied to culture, that's also what colonialism does. And so even in our best efforts to establish justice and peace on the world, it can be a very sensitive situation, like white people, going into a black neighborhood and telling them to stop oppressing others, that kind of thing. And so it just what occurred to me, that's this whole thing's what colonialism does. I'm going to just take from you, and you're going to have to be like me, or we're going to kill you.
Yep, that's pretty much the way it is. Lucy, were you about to go?
Yeah, I can go after you though, if you have things you want to say.
No, I'm good. I'm good.
Okay. Yeah, it kind of, this feels like the difference between a lack mindset and an abundance mindset in a way. It's kind of like this, the clinginess of the lack mindset. It's like, no, there's not enough resources, there's not enough, there's too many of us, or got to take, like you're saying, Nancy, taking without consent. And this, for my shadow this week, it's been, from this point of view, clinging really spoke to me. I didn't have time to read through your description, unfortunately, Dharmendra, but it really, like, as soon as I saw clinging, I was like, okay, because this week has been very much about victimhood has been a big theme, but I've experienced a lot of people, or I've witnessed and felt within myself that mindset, and been able to notice it and transmute it as best as I could. But there's like this sense of clinginess that I've experienced, when people just kind of want a certain amount of a certain kind of energy, and I have again done my best to transmute it. Don't really know exactly on a 3D physical level what exactly to do about it if it keeps happening, but I guess I'm just strengthening my boundaries and just saying I would rather not have people trying to take that kind of energy from me or trying to be in my space. And there's really been this clinginess, but then I'm seeing that reflected in my relationship with someone, that I'm feeling like I need a response, I need something, and I do in some ways, but I'm also trying to be as conscious as I can about giving them their space and not being in their energy and trying to take, because that's what I'm feeling from some other people. It's like, it's very, and the more sensitive I become, the more high vibe I guess I become, the more I'm feeling like, I guess, the energy vampires are there, as well as the ones who want to give and support, but they're the other ones who just want something from me, and I don't. I'm not letting myself be overwhelmed, which I've done in the past with this cycle, I guess. So yeah, I really want to be able to transmute that and turn it into this interconnectedness and come to attunement. And maybe, I don't know if it's a case of like giving them a bit of what they need, but then I don't want to placate anybody, and I don't want to disempower anybody. The point is that I'm trying to empower people to look after themselves, rather than be like, I need your help. I need you. I'm not here to be that person for anybody. So I want to be empowering, and I feel like giving them a bit of what they need is just gonna be disempowering. I don't know. And also at the same time, as I said, aware of the fact that I'm feeling it in myself a little bit, like this sense of like, oh, I need this thing from this person. But also there is a higher perspective to everything. I know that, and I'm just really trying to see everything from that higher body, my higher self, and see everything from that higher perspective, or know that it's there, even if I can't quite see it right at this point. Just know that it's there and let it be, but do my best in the moment in the 3D realm of interacting with people. It's so complicated.
Well, cool. A couple things I got out of that. One is because I went on a lot about the material resources, but you're also speaking about the when it comes to relationships. There's also the I guess you could call it emotional or energetic resources. Um, and then there's also well, this the you know, we also have spiritual clinging in the sense of, you know, religious traditions that don't want to let go of their ways of doing things and ways of seeing things, and that especially in America and the whole fanatical Christian kind of way of seeing things. But there's fanatical religiousness all over the world, and that also all of that is just about clinging to old ways where the way of practicing religion was relevant to times a long time ago that have become so outdated because the very foundation of why those things were created no longer exists. So you have these empty rituals. And that's also vampiristic, because then you throw all this energy into these empty rituals expecting to get results, which basically means tuning into deeper states of consciousness in yourself, and it doesn't work because those rituals were created for different people in different times. And so that's another aspect of it, to cover the whole spectrum of what the clinging could possibly mean. It's also, there's also clinging to ideas and people who, you know, think they're right about the way they see things and trying to impose that way on others through ideologies. And that's where you get your politics and creates wars and all those things, because people cling on to, this is the right way to do it. If you don't agree, we're going to kill you or whatever. So I just kind of wanted to open it up a bit, since you started to step into the energetic and emotional side of it with relationship, to keep the full spectrum of how clinging can be on so many, you know, from spiritual to relationship to mental to emotional to energetic to material, all of it. So thank you.
Hello. Yeah, this is a really deep and intense one for me, for sure, because I've often been someone of resource because I have a lot of talents, and then I was able to make money at them, or like I had a really deep work ethic to, you know, where I come from in my country and stuff, that we work hard, you know, so it was literally hard, you know, work to make it, you know, coming from a single mother family, and like work hard, make money, get your own place, be independent. Also third generation feminist kind of experience of, we're not feminists, but it's still just a movement that happens amongst females. So it's like, you know, have independence, and then, you know, I'm a really nice person, and then people would cling to me until they got what they could get and then dump me. And it sucked because it happened over and over again. There's like, my boyfriend relationships are me having helped men come into their own, and then as soon as they do, they leave me. And the whole time, you know, they're making it a really difficult time for me to live my life and help them. And and also the thing that I've done as a kind of an adventure mode, which kind of to learn from the world and do my activism on the way that I do, is that I went to multiple types of communities. So I've been in a lot of different types of communities in all kind of like spaces. And it's really interesting to see where I was welcomed and loved and where I was not. And so, you know, in all communities, there's strangeness of this clinging, this needing, this hierarchical kind of experience. It seems like it's almost a human embodiment about how to deal with the shadow energy of need. And, you know, there's the alpha person, and there's the more sexy woman, and the more buff guy, the man who's got a lot of money, and then the women who want to be with him because he's rich. You know, that's what I'm seeing in some communities. And then in other communities, because I was a woman of means, you know, the men who didn't have money came to me, but they were just using me. You know, or were they? It's all like questionable, but they certainly didn't treat me well. They didn't treat me with respect. And then so I came into a position of loss and not having, you know, not being able to uphold my community anymore, and not having money, finances myself. And then I finally entered a community where people were into people that had money and riches and independence. So before, I was more like in communities where people needed those riches and independence, and I was the rich independent person. So to be in both those stratified spaces was a really interesting experience, especially as a woman. So, you know, when I was rich in poor places, you know, people really looked down upon me, spat upon me, and expected to have everything that I had. And they took it, they stole it to the point to where I had nothing. And so then I entered a rich community when I had nothing, and how they used me to get their needs met was very interesting as well. So I would say it's just it's a human thing that people have inside of them, and it's in all communities, and everyone wants to live wealthy, healthy, and feel good, but they're very confused about it. I would say that that's a very deep confusion, but also on a really, and I did too. I actually fell in love with someone, or, you know, a couple times here and there, and there were really men who were hurt by society, by the needs to look and be a certain way, to as if they made it, you know, as opposed to working with their heart and their spirit. So I see how men are really hurt by the expectations of society to be big men and not worry about their feelings. And so and then they're stuck in that, and that's kind of like where the narcissism might come in, because they're trying to be something that they're actually not, but then there's no welcoming for how they can be what they are. And then so that's where our personalities come in, because then, you know, I, you know, met some really wonderfully heartful men who didn't know how to use their hearts, and then I was upset at them for not using their hearts, but then I didn't really welcome it when I came in. So I had my own struggles of clinging, neediness, and power issues within myself. So I think we can look at all of this stratified experience within ourselves, and then how it's like from micro to macro, how it extends to all of our community, and the shadow is within all of us. And when we make peace with lack of abundance or blame of someone having more than us, or we might come to a point of realizing that there actually is deep abundance, and we can connect in those agreement fields of deep abundance. And I think that's where the gift is coming. And I just am really thankful for these experiences, but I'm also thankful to be hopping out of that shadow, and I really hope that the rest of the world does that with us. And I love the people deeply that I've connected with in all communities, and I really just hope that everyone comes into a deep heart field of love, caring, and sharing on earth. I think that's what we're really calling for. And not to blame anyone, not even the 1%. Like the 1% are just as hurt as, you know, the 1,000% or the 99%. So if when we shame and blame people, then that's where we actually lose the abundance of the wealth that we are as humanity in love with each other. So, you know, even the 1% are human, even if they're not human, maybe they're alien, but they're alien trying to come to another place or something. Like, if we could just draw it out to each other through attraction, the attraction field, and what we're attracted to, and allowing our attraction. Oh my God, I could just go continually deep on this, but I think we can open it up to the gift now, right? Thank you for
Oh,
listening.
yes. I'll just say thank you. That was good. What I want to say now is just that the essence of clinging has to do with the fact that we're supporting something that isn't real, and that's the image we were given of ourselves through our conditioning, which isn't our essence. It's what everybody else wanted from us. And in the end, what creates all of the shadow of this life code is clinging to that image of ourself. And by that, then it sets up the false illusion that we have to cling to life in order to be alive. And it's the opposite. The minute we let go, we're fully alive and we're immersed in life and attuned to it. So that's just before we, and I don't know if Nancy wanted to say anymore. She only had a sentence or two, so I'm going to give her a moment of space. But I just wanted to point out that all of these things we've been talking about, and we really got into a beautiful range of so many different things that clinging can be about, which is really cool. And so I thought that was great. But it all emanates from the ego, whose nature it is to cling and hold on to because it's not real. So it has to hold on to everything to maintain its illusion. Is there anything you wanted to say, Nancy, more than what you already said?
No, it just occurred to me how much fear there is in clinging. It's really fear-based. But I've really enjoyed listening to everyone. It's been quite profound. So thank you.
Well, and that was a mouthful you just said without realizing it, that one word, because all shadows are based in fear. So they're all going to have a manifestation that arises out of fear, and it's a fear in this case in relation to needs and resources, not having enough and satisfying whatever needs that we've created for ourselves. As we shift into the gift of attunement, and simultaneously with that, we release this hold the ego has on the illusory nature that it has constructed out of everybody else's opinions about itself. We leave that into the mind and we just drop into the heart. And as we step into the heart and take a breath through the heart, well, one of the things that happens immediately when we attune through the heart is one of the needs that's constantly being, these are things we even don't remember and take for granted so much of the time. I'm not saying anybody here does, because at least sometime of the day we remember breathing, and we remember that one of the things that is supported all the time without us having to do anything is our breathing. And it's literally in our heartbeat. Those things are those are the most vital necessities there are, breathing and heartbeat. Without those two things, we're gone in a heartbeat. Oh, no pun intended. But so first thing is when we start to attune into ourselves, and that's always the way to shift it, is we come back to ourselves, because everything to do with the ego is everything that isn't us, that's out there, that we have to chase and make effort. The minute we stop efforting and we settle back into who we are and attune to ourselves, the first couple of things we realize is our heart is beating and we're breathing. So immediately we're tuned in again. We're tuned back into the true necessities and what they are. And from there, it's things kind of simplify. And we start to realize and get in touch with, what we know of how the world works. And we realize that we are capable of being responsible for supporting whatever lifestyle we choose for ourselves, starting from the attunement we have in our heart, and feeling through our heart what it is, what do we really need? What do we really need? And like Denise pointed out really well, it's like, it's not what's out there or who's got what or the games we play in relationships or anything. It's an attunement with the heartbeat of the energy of life. And once that starts to beat in us, it's amazing, because then the heart kind of takes over as the boss. And it does take some degree of trust to step back into the heart and realize it's the heart that's the boss and the mind's the servant. The way we all have been taught, the mind is being is the boss, and everything else is the servant. And that's why our life is so messed up. And really it's so simple that once we feel in our heart, we attune to our heart and we see what we really need, then the only thing the mind can do at that point is pay attention and create a direction to go in, and then also just constantly monitor that we're heading in, that we're maintaining our course. Life, it just becomes so much simpler in that way. And then all these games that we were caught up in with relationships and with spirituality and with basic needs for food and shelter and all that, we kind of all of a sudden realize that we're covering that, and then a whole other world opens up, and we realize the true needs are to be attuned on this planet to the environment we live in, to the space we share with all the other creatures on this planet, including humans. And then our whole approach to our life is more about tuning into everything and creating a flow, a harmonious exchange of energies that comes just from the attunement and just being in your heart. And it creates such a different dynamic about how we interrelate and how we exchange resources with our environment and individuals and other life forms. Just the energy changes, and the kind of experiential capacity to take in the signals and to express ourselves just becomes so much more deep and rich and fulfilling, because it's not about what we can get out of things or what things can get out of us. It's about tuning into what's already there and allowing that to have its space. And the more and then then the subtlety of our awareness can grow through that, and we can realize that there's so much we can be attuned to, and so much we can be fulfilled by just by being present in the moment and attuned to the moment. And then we realize the incredible richness that's here in this moment that doesn't have to do with anything that we used to cling to, with this false notion that we created out of this illusion that we need to hold on to life in order to stay alive, and then all the things that happen as a result of it. And once we let that go and our clenched fists just open and relax, my God, there's just so much to take in. There's so many things to tune into. It's amazing how much there is when we stop creating all this artificial noise from our mind and our egos, and the clinging and the neediness and we don't need to do any of those things, because what happens as we attune is we let go of all the things that are unnecessary, that aren't real needs. They're mind created from a false illusion of ourself, which we call an ego, that we cling on to more than anything else. It's the very essence of clinging itself. But then when we tap into the heart, it's a totally different thing. The heart is attuned to everything. It's attuned to our movements in our body. It will change the way it beats depending on how we move. It's absolutely attuned. It's the essence of attunement, our heart, because it always is right there with whatever's. If we tune into another person and feel a deep love, our heart will beat differently. If we go sit in nature and just sit by a stream, our heart will beat differently, and that's because we're attuning differently. If we have a feeling of love, we're going to breathe different. Our heart will beat differently. And it's very different if it's anger, then it's going to beat in a very different way. So it's, the very essence of attunement comes from the heart. The very essence of clinging is a mental activity that creates an ego that's separate. So that's what I'll say about that, to open up the gift of attunement, the law of necessity.
It seems to me that this attunement, this resensitization, is a natural outcome of letting go. Because like you were saying, you see what's there. And it just occurred to me, the process of going vegan, and people think they have to give things up. And then you realize that you don't give anything up at all. You're letting go of something like awful, and that there's this whole world of experience, and in terms of food, a whole another world that opens up to you. But it seemed like you're giving things up. It seems like you know, but you really, you don't. And it seems so similar to me. The depth and richness to the awareness capacity. It's true. It's true.
That was probably one of the biggest things that started opening up was my senses. The further I went into veganism is as if they, resensitization. They just started to work again in ways I didn't even know they could. Because when they worked that well, I was so young that I wasn't really interested in being aware of that. I was a kid and I was interested in chasing butterflies and playing catch and rolling in the grass and doing all those kind of things. So anyway, that's a good point.
Yeah, beautiful. Attunement. So tuning into my heart, letting go, surrendering into my body. Exactly. Gosh, I feel like I'm going to dip into the shadow a little bit because I'm going to get a little bit more personal here. Because in attunement is pretty deep for me. I've been discovering how to attune myself and to myself in super deep ways after clinging to my embodiment as if I was falling my whole life. You know, I was abused by people outside of my family in a severe way when I was a child, and which had me really uncomfortable with my body and kind of like clinging to my very own muscles and my very own bones in a way of deep fear of my own embodiment. So it's exactly that, in letting go of that and attuning to the heart and no longer being in the head of fear. As like when I drop into myself, it's like my entire framework shifts. And it's actually a very challenging experience for me, and that's why I meditate so much. I meditate like 1 to 5 hours per day, and I spent a year and a half, 2 years in the last few years meditating like 3 to 5 hours a day, like a minimum 3 hours. And it had me see all the things that the loops and patterns in my head that I was clinging to, so that I could reattune to my natural self and my heart and my love, and actually live in the fabric of this reality in a way that is abundance and loved, and not fearful of people taking from me, taking my body, taking my worth, taking my offerings, my gifts, my money, my car, my house. You know, pretty much everything had been taken from me at one point in this lifetime by aggressors. So how to attune the body after that is, and trust back into the world, is a pretty deep process for me and for many people. And I feel like that's something that I'm here to help bring people back into. And that's where you recognize, you know, what's going on in your field. Because if things are taken from you, you know, and you're grown up like that, then that's what you're familiar with, and you don't really know how to interact with the world in the fabric of reality of abundance. And that's what I noticed in, you know, the kind of poorer communities that I hung out with, is that they just talked and thought poor. And then, you know, and then they were making each other more poor by how they were like, you know, hurting each other. And then, you know, in the rich communities, they were more like, you can't talk to us unless you're talking positive. And so I think that's beautiful on some level. Like, I really love that. But at the same time, there was a level of phoniness that ended up being there too. So how can you attune to your true nature? I think this is the evolution of humanity, and really surrender, like you're saying, Nancy, into yourself, and like you're saying, Dharmendra, be more attuned to the physical body and the light nature of the gift of humanity without, you know, aggressors that like a lot of times we have to protect. So when we attune to our heart, it's because we are surrendering and creating those safe spaces for ourselves and for others by who we choose to be around, what community we live in, what communities we interact with, what people we let into our sphere. That's a deep attunement to recognizing what energies are doing what to us, and then also how to work with them if they're inappropriate. And so this, I'm just going to mention a little bit of what happened this week. Monday and Tuesday may have been big days for us because Jupiter and Pluto were conjunct with Saturn in Capricorn. So this is a big time for us to re-lead ourselves into new spaces. And for me, I blocked someone I totally love, from my life because they weren't, they were treating me like a resource rather than family. So that just gave my energy back, to not be concerned about their care, not be connected to any disagreement fields we have. And since they're not willing to agree, to just disconnect the energy at all. So that's part of the attunement process, is what kind of agreements are we in, bonds and contracts do we have, what kind can we let go of, and so that we can be clear and clean in our energetic sphere. And that's a part of the attunement process I've been doing, as well as I do chakra clearing and sound clearing with my embodiment pretty regularly, and it seemed like I have to do it every day, but I also was carrying a lot of really shadow experiences in my sphere for a long time, so they come back pretty easily if I don't reattune myself. So, but I'm seeing that that's what we need as a society, is to come into the attunement of our innate nature, of our beautiful, abundant, thriving, heartful, caring, light-lit embodiments. And I really look forward to deepening that with myself and with others. And I hope that I spoke the gift well here. Thank you. I'm complete.
Yeah. Yep. You did, because the whole process kind of, one of the things that's enjoyable in these meetings is when a person can, it's not so much what you say, but it's the fact that you actually do what the gift is. So what I felt from you is, as you spoke more and more, you were tuning more and more to your own heart, to your own process. And so it seemed like you started out saying, well, I might go into a bit of shadow, but then the more you spoke, the more I felt your attunement come into your silent, inner, heartfelt space. So I'll just acknowledge that. So in the sense of, yes, I think that was a pretty good journey to attunement as an attunement, as an attunement expression, an expression of what attunement is.
Hi, sorry, I've been here and I've been listening. I'm struggling with this one for some reason. I'm not sure why. I feel very, there's a lot to it, but I feel like my attention this week, it's a funny desynchronization maybe of this week. Normally they line up really well, and this, it kind of has in clinging. I'm struggling a little bit with attunement, but I think it's,
Hey Lucy, real quick, I don't want to interrupt, but as my incredible spiritual teacher used to say, I'll just, and he said it in relation to something else, but I'll apply the same principle. Tune into your disattunement. Start there. Start where you're at.
okay. Yeah, well, I guess to start with, touch on what you were saying, Denise, about the alignments cosmically, astrologically. That's a lot of the stuff that I've been looking at coming up to the beginning of August, and the Lion's Gate. And I feel very, very called to connect with Sirius. And yeah, I'm feeling more of an attunement with the sky and with the stars again, because it's been a long time since I used to always feel very connected with the sky. And I never really got into astrology, but I'm kind of developing more of an understanding of how energy works all around us, as well as, physically. And for me, it's a very important time. It's my birthday, is the 8th of August. And so we're having a big celebration for the Lion's Gate, and kind of combining that with my thing that I was going to be doing anyway. And so just doing a bit more research into that and tuning into an understanding of the just huge, unbelievably, incomprehensibly massive universe that we are. And yeah, diving into that a little bit more and feeling more of an attunement with the collective consciousness, I think, as well. And understanding that, as I said at the beginning, there really is just a higher perspective to everything. Coming at it from a bigger picture perspective, there's always like that higher self, that 6-7D kind of vision of everything. So just remembering that that's there, and that I'm never going to be able to understand the vastness of the universe, but just attuning to love, really love and light, and remembering that that's all that there really is in the end. That's all it goes back to. Yeah, that's me for now. Thanks.
Nice. That didn't sound so disattuned to me. And that's the beauty of working in a collective thing like we do, because everybody kind of subtly helps everybody else just by their intent to be in the space that we're opening. One thing I don't think I've ever mentioned in any of the meetings so far that has to do with our 7 bodies and how they relate to the spectrum of consciousness. Just so everybody's aware, our 3 lower bodies, which are our physical, our astral, and our mental, which is basically, our material existence, our feeling existence, and our thinking existence, are always impacted by the shadow. So that's where the clinging is going to come in, because obviously if we don't have food, we're going to cling to, we're going to be clinging, we're going to need resources. So we're going to be clinging and go, my God, give me food. We might be even like in India, when you go to India, there's beggars. They're clinging to life by begging. They don't have enough food, and the same emotionally with codependent relationships, and the same mentally with just ignorance and needing to know more. So those are just examples of where clinging comes into play. And so that's the first, second, and third bodies. When we move to the gift, it's about the third, the fourth, and the fifth bodies. The fourth is the heart, the compassion. The third is the mind, because you need to train the mind to become silent, to create a connection to, that's how it starts to become the servant to the heart. And then the fifth body, which is all about remaining centered in the cyclone and still, but it's just it's your connection to your individual superconsciousness, your higher, and there's that attunement is a deeper attunement. It's not to do with the heart and compassion; it's to do with the whole of existence, but as you as an individual. So that's where the third, the fourth, and the fifth bodies come in: the mental body, the causal body, and the Buddhic body. And then the Siddha is about the fifth body, the sixth body, and the seventh body. So the fifth body is individual superconsciousness, the Buddhic body. The sixth body is the atmic body, is collective superconsciousness. And the seventh body, monadic body, is cosmic or universal superconsciousness. So that's how interconnectedness plays into, once you tune in through that attunement and you find your center, you realize that your whole body is like a miniature universe. So you feel the interconnectedness on a microcosmic scale. And then as you step into your heart from the Siddhic space, you feel your connection with all of life and all creatures, all living beings. And then as you step into your spirit in the Siddha, you tap into the all of the life forms of existence, higher life forms and all of it. So that just to give a kind of a brief infrastructure of what we're actually doing when we go through the shadow of the gift of the Siddha. We're actually tapping into all seven bodies, and that's how we're doing it. So the first three bodies in the shadow, the third, fourth, and the fifth bodies in the gift, and the fifth, sixth, and seventh in the Siddha. That's their domains. So, and that's how they overlap too, so that we can shift from one to the other, because there's a continuity there. So with interconnectedness, the Siddha, I just wanted to kind of read again what this this is one sentence, by the way. I just wanted to read that again kind of slowly and just really sort of sensitively for all of us. And as I read each thing, I invite everybody to actually be what's being expressed, because it's really a pretty cool way, because the point of it is, I'll say it after. First I'll read. So when you breathe in harmony with all of life, all of life breathes in harmony with you. And you are put directly in touch with the consciousness of the earth. As a subtle guidance begins to inform your every thought, word, and deed through a vast network of intelligence, of which you are one singular, unique expression. And such is the magic of existence, that it centers all of this into and through you, this consciousness of the whole. As you step into and embody your true role on this planet as caretaker and steward, being the most advanced organic life form that has ever evolved on this planet. So in the end, we realize we are the resource. We are the essence of that word to everything on this planet. We're the resource. We're the gift. We're the giving. We have everything in us to satisfy everything on this planet. That's really the deepest truth in all of this about needs and resources. We are that which provides the need. It truly takes a real depth of perception and awareness through all of us caretakers here. And that is what true freedom is. It's to step into taking total responsibility for everything. The gift that we've been given to exist, to be here, and all the incredible abilities that are at our fingertips to develop, and all the methods that have been developed to help us create whatever we want in this world. When we are interconnected, when we are together, when we are one intent, and that's to create a paradise on this earth. That's the ultimate expression of this life code. And then all the beautiful magic of what paradise implies, which is we can communicate with all forms of life. We can literally, and this starts to get sci-fi, but it's actually what this gift, this life code brings is we can actually change bodies with other forms of life just for fun, just to play, just to see what it's like to be other life forms. I mean, angels do it with us all the time, and when we can tap into higher forms of intelligence, we can do it back. That's the easiest place to do it. It's more challenging to do it with forms of life that aren't as complex as ours. But in the interconnectedness of this city as the resource, think about it. If we're interconnected with everything and we're in touch with everything, then doesn't that mean everything also wants to be in touch with us too? We don't think of it like that. We think, oh, we're just in touch with everything out there and I can feel and see everything all at once and it's rippling through me. Yes, but everything else is feeling the same as you are about you, as you are about it. So that's just, I don't think I need to say much more than that, because that kind of says it, what interconnectedness is, and the fact that it's a two-way street also. And for me to just tap into that for a moment, it just really makes my heart soar. It makes me feel some of the deepest purpose I've ever felt being on this planet is just so simple. It's right through that interconnectedness. It satisfies so many things to just get into that space. It's like, then everything's here, and you're in touch with all of it. Everything just kind of becomes easy at that point. That's all I'll say for now.
I'll go if if you're going in order. Denise or Nancy, do you guys want to go first? Something that's a phrase that's really been on my mind this week, because I've been seeking something, is that which you are seeking is seeking you. And so that really speaks to me through what you just said as well. It's the interconnectedness. And I love that line, when you breathe in harmony with all of life breathes in harmony with you. That's just, wow. That really just says it all, doesn't it? It's like, I can really just see the web of life, the fractals and the sacred geometry. It's like, just everything's connected through light, through love. And it's like, I've just come to this understanding this week of, it all just comes back to love, and there's no fear of love. There's no need to fear anything, because everything ultimately just goes back to the same thing, and that is love and light, and that's what we're all connected by. So even if we're struggling with our egos and struggling with our shadows, and the darkness is made brighter or is made darker when the light shines brighter, it's like, yes, but ultimately it all just comes back to the same thing. And interconnectedness and feeling that connection with other beings, whether they're human or non-human, physical, non-physical, it's all frequency, it's all light energy. And it's all just, it's so beautiful. And I just had this vision the other night of when I was in a meditative state, and really feeling the heart being the portal, being that the center for everything, and that the connection that we have with everything else emanating from the light in our hearts, and seeing like this emptiness in a way. It's almost like just pure clarity, like pure consciousness. It's almost like there's nothing there, but there's so much there that it's just purity. It's just pure existence, pure consciousness, pure love and light. And when you can, I just saw this, I was sitting there with my friend and just seeing this light coming from their heart, and just just clarity. It's beautiful. So I like this, Siddha.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a nice Siddhic expression of this space. The clear light of the heart. That's a very special experience when it occurs between yourself and another. And it always comes unawares and unexpected. And when it comes, it just lights things up from the inside. And for a moment, maybe it's possible that you can experience this very body as light. That can come also through that clear light that comes in the heart. And it's not that anything changes. It's just, you just get it, that it's that we're luminous, and nothing. Again, nothing changes. It's not like your body lights up like a Hollywood movie version of it. It's just that you see it for the first time. It's always there. It's a matter of attuning to it. So anyway, that's very nice. Thank you.
When I think about this, I'm very much about creating experiences in life that will help us interconnect with each other in coherent and valuable vibrations, frequencies, and experiences. So, being a technology designer, I've developed some systems that work with that, because what I noticed in the communities that I've participated in is that people get stuck in certain kinds of idea and feeling landscapes like a virus. And so it just goes around in the community, and it becomes, part of the philosophical stone or whatever of how they live, and what it is, what the value is, whether it be anarchy or religion, or atheism, or there's all these different branches of how humanity believes and feels is the best way to live. And what's happening in the more nomadic kind of cultures, where people are like me, are visiting multiple cultures, like either within the Western culture or cultures around the world that are not even Western, tribal, and Eastern and South and North and everything. And so that brings me back to mimicry and entanglement. So we have mirror neurons in our brains and our minds. So when you smile and I see you smile, then I smile. Even seeing an emoji that is with 2 eyes and a smiley face, that mirrors or mimics something in our brain that activates the smile chemical and feeling, and colors as well. Like when you see a flower, the beautiful pinks and reds and blues and purples, that activates vivid momentum and feeling inside of our bodies. So that's why it's really popular to make kind of cartoonish, super fun, gleeful emojis, depending, and these gifs and these memes, and because it all means something to us and helps us rewire ourselves in a way that helps us feel interwoven and connected to the fabric of reality and aspects of life that we like to live. And that's why the global culture on the internet is so vast and has so much great potential, because we leave our old bubbles of prejudice, and we look for the diversity of life in all life, and we take the gems of every person's treasures into our own, as if they're our own, and we can pick and choose that which works for us and which doesn't, and appreciate every aspect from the shadow to the light. So, but of course, knowing what we want to embody and what we want to interweave and interconnect with in the infinite field of possibility in the Indra's net, where every facet of every human is a holograph of reflection in every single one of us, and that we can take on through time and space and momentum in our embodiment. So I just kind of went into abstracts, but that's kind of where I live a lot of the times. I see the vision of how we entangle and interweave. And so what I've been working with in my own aspects of having, had these strange experiences of embodiment that were uncomfortable, and how to re-relate that and recreate that in my embodiment and also in my relations and entanglements and interconnections and weavings helps me see how we may evolve. And I've been working with entanglement, having fallen in love with someone who I think, is my twin flame or something. And I work with that idea landscape, but then there's a lot of pain around that, and how to evolve out of that, and how to be the love in my heart and the resonance that I love to be, even with the pain, and see all the beauty in someone and connect with that, even though I might be addicted to a victimization kind of framework that keeps me clinging to what I think is, grasping a reality that I don't even like. So how do I freeform myself falling into the vast landscape of potential, but still feel held by life? And that's where, I think we seek comfort in our relations. And I was seeking comfort in the relation of this person I blocked because they weren't meeting me there. So now I'm in freeform flow again, and it's relaxing. It allows me to not worry about what other people think, and re-entangle with the infinite field of potential reality, knowing that there are beautiful people in this world who love what I'm about, and love, especially for people who are coming out of abuse, like to realize that there are amazing people in the world that will love you and that you can connect with, and that will hold your hand and hold your body like you're important, rather than a piece of meat that they can use and, throw out when because they don't care. They don't care about your humanity. I've felt that so much as a female, pretty female, sucks being pretty sometimes, sucks being female, because people just take that advantage of that. Now I'm older, and now I'm like, oh, now I'm not pretty, so I'm tossed out again, like used as a female because you're pretty when you're young, and then tossed out as an older hag, like that's the kind of the female experience a little bit. And to just believe that there's actual community who actually love you and actually care for you, and to that you can have intimacy that cares for your embodiment, rather than treats you like you're garbage. I think so many people want to feel that kind of entanglement with the world, and it does exist. So how do you reflux, re-undulate into that experience, and land into that beautiful experience? And that's where I want to go. I'm sorry, this is taking a while. Is the mimicry, the sharing, that the people who hold the keys of knowing what it's like to feel good. For those people who don't know what it's like, we need you to escort us into that space. So as I get deeper into that space myself, I find myself escorting a lot of people, and then wanting to create technology so that people can be escorted into that space. So if you have a gift that someone else does not have, please give it to them, because they might not know how to live that. And that's where the mimicry and the re-entanglement of the masses comes into creating a fabric of reality that we love, and it's contagious. So yeah, the entanglement and the interconnectivity is so beautiful. And if we can see that the dream of thriving life on earth is possible in all of our hearts, then probably it is so, and it shall be, and so be it. Thank you. I am done.
All right. So a few good points in there about the Siddha. Again, as I was speaking about the three bodies in relation to each Siddha, and another aspect of each of these bodies is that the shadow, it has a shadow aspect, a gift aspect, and a Siddha aspect. And the way to see that is that the shadow of any of the, whether it's the shadow of the shadow, the shadow of the gift, or the shadow of the Siddha, is it's the most automatic or mechanical part of that aspect. So when we're talking about the mechanical aspect, in other words, the Buddhic body aspect of the Siddha, it's interesting because there is shadow in the Siddha in the sense that whether we know it or not, we're all interconnected. So there's a vast amount of unconscious interconnectedness going on that's creating a lot of the big mess that's this planet. That part of it. That's actually Siddha space, but it's a part of Siddha space that's showing us with total clarity a huge shadow in the interconnectedness. So that's just something we maybe don't think about that often. And then again, it's like the shadow aspect is the most mechanical or most unconscious aspect of any of these because they all have the others within them. And then the gift aspect is not, it's not automatic. It's about sensitivity. It's about what you're pulled toward or what you're pushed away from. So there's a magnetism to it. It's not just this automatic, unconscious thing. It's kind of like subconscious or semi-conscious. And that's where the whole thing about relationship comes into play, because it's always got to do with sensitization and how sensitive you are to things around you at each level. And then ultimately at the Siddha level, it's the conscious aspect. So we become conscious of the shadow. The Siddha aspect of the shadow is we become conscious of the shadow. And we break the hold the shadow has over us and our behaviors. And when we become conscious at the gift level, we transcend even the collective and we get into the universal, and we start to catch symbols. Through everything we see that's living becomes a symbol for something universal. So that's how that's the Siddha aspect of the gift. And then the Siddha aspect of the Siddha, of course, is just what interconnectedness truly means, is that we're sitting in the source of our own source. And so we are literally that resource that I was talking about. We become that resource for everything. Well, that's what is God but the ultimate resource, without it unconditionally, because without that there wouldn't be anything. And there has to be something like that, whether you call it God or whatever. There's something from which all this is arising. And so that's the conscious aspect, or the Siddha aspect of the Siddha, that creates the whole thing. So I'm hoping this helps you guys to layer in different understandings of what these mean and how they're related to different bodies, because then you can get a little bit more specific in how you work with them too out in your work in the world, because you'll be able to start catching more distinctions about what aspect of the Siddha are they doing. Are they about to break out of it, or are they tug of war with somebody, or are they just completely manipulated because they're totally unconscious and the Siddhas and the shadows totally got them, So that's why I'm saying all these things now. I give you examples of how that might play out in your everyday life, because these aren't just like abstract symbols that we come here every week and we do all these things with it. It's actually connected to what's actually occurring in our lives, and it's a really savvy way to get very to differentiate and to start to see how to really become very sensitive and skillful and precise about how you can offer this stuff to others and to yourself in ways that are beneficial. Because we're always talking about moving out. Nobody likes to stay in shadows. Yeah, of course not. But then if that's the case, wouldn't you want to be really skillful and getting very precise about how you can get in there and light that up for people so they can make a choice at that point? or they can just push you away and they don't understand. But then that relationship is over because they don't want that. And they want to believe whatever their illusion is stronger than the truth you're bringing. There's nothing you can do about that. That's sometimes just the way it is. Everybody grows at their own pace. Nancy, did you have anything you wanted to play into this, the interconnectedness here, or did you already? I can't remember. and if you have anything else you might want to say, I don't know, because everybody I think has shared. Okay. So that was the work part of this. So we seem to have a little extra time. If anybody has anything they might want to, I don't know, we usually don't do questions, but if anybody were to have a question, that'd be interesting. But otherwise, if there's anything left anybody feels like sharing, I don't know, about anything, because we've kind of covered the purpose of the session today, and everybody did great. We're getting better at this. I'm noticing everybody's tapping in easier and getting out what they need to say, and it's more relevant. So, which is what I was hoping for. Everybody's just becoming more skilled at tapping into all this.
I mean, I really like what you're saying about a few things. I like, so you're saying shadows the mechanical, unconscious. The gift is like the subconscious, and then
Semi-conscious, subconscious, and it's the sensitization, push pull. You know, there's magnetics now. It's not just automatic.
And then the shadows automatic, and then the Siddha is the super conscious.
Well, it's intentional and it's fully conscious, and yes, super conscious. It can be at the yes.
Right. At the Siddha level.
Yeah.
The shadow Siddha level and the gift Siddha level and the Siddha level.
Right.
Which is really cool because, like you were saying, that the mechanical level of the shadow is like the propulsion a little bit. It's like the thing that might activate a movement through the spectrum even.
Mm-hmm. Well, it does two things. It keeps the ground as the ground and absorbs all the things into the ground that need to go back into the ground. So that's one way of looking at it in relation to all the other stages, all the other steps.
Super cool. Yeah, I love learning to work with this. So I do have a specific question, if people don't mind me saying one more thing.
Yeah, we have a few more. You know, we have a little bit more time, but if we're done, we're done too, and we can end. But if people, yeah, go ahead.
You were saying how to work with this in our relations, because obviously I brought up some relations that really mattered to me, mm-hmm. And then letting go of them because, you know, we're not in any kind of resonant agreement field at the moment, and I need to be resonant in my body. But in general, like, you know, for when it happens again, or if I reconnect with any of these people that I'm not connected with right now because I want to be in resonation, how you were saying something about how we could work with the shadow gift Siddha in relation. Can you explain a little bit more with that, like to recognize where they are? I'm definitely, like, because I'm so into psychology and philosophy and people evolving, I want to know how to do that better.
Well, it's just real simple, because at the shadow level, your whole relationship is a mental game. So basically, it's either something if it's at the shadow level of the shadow, it's a total conditioning trip that you got from your parents, most likely, or somebody very influential in your younger life that had a male-female dynamic, and it's just playing out through you, and you're just kind of it's a chemistry thing, and you're just being totally taken by it. There's really not much else. You can't stop the pull when it happens. That's when it moves into the gift level of the shadow. You can't stop it when it pulls you into, and you can't stop it when you push it away. And then and ultimately at the Siddha level of the shadow of that, you start to become aware of the pattern. And as you start to become aware of the pattern, you're going to have less energy to be taken over by that pattern, because you're going to have more energy for being aware of the pattern rather than being lost in the pattern. So that's the shadow aspect of it. But it's all a mental game that's being played out. It's not until you step into the gift that it becomes a heart space. And then there's maybe something karmic where you have, because of genetic ties that may go beyond this lifetime, there's a commitment that you need to make, and there's some giving you need to do, and it will feed the collective through you. Your relationship will feed the collective. So it goes beyond the individual mental game trip that you're each playing against each other and really basically using each other as objects at the shadow level, no matter which stage, shadow, gift, or siddha. But when you get to the gift stage, there's something going beyond you. The relationship has a relevance to the collective. So that's a little different. And at the shadow level of the gift, it's basically just it's going to play itself out, and you're just going to have to be there with it. When you get into the gift level of the gift, then your heart, you can start to get behind the giving that you're going to do in your heart toward the other, and then also what you receive from the other. You can start to learn that Atisha's technique of transformation: absorb the suffering and breathe back bliss. Because at the gift level, that becomes a potential that wasn't there at the shadow in its stages of levels. At the gift level, you're starting to be semi-conscious, so you can start to take in energy that's dark and then transform it and breathe out light energy. And what that does is it trains you also how to transform all your darkness, which is really all that it's doing, because you can't really do that for another person. Although you can, but that's if you're that's a much higher level. It doesn't exist at the gift level. So what you're doing in practicing that is caring for the other and giving attention to the other, and basically healing yourself through the relationship. And that's why it's part of the collective, because as you make yourself better, you become an asset to the collective. Okay? And then at the Siddha level, you start to see your relationship as symbolic of some higher truth. And you start to see the person you're with as symbolic of some higher truth. That's when the Siddha starts to break through into the gift, through the Siddha aspect of the gift level. So then the relationship becomes a symbolic journey of going through all the different facets of what it is to be human, from the deep down dark cave, unconscious, hellacious stuff that you expose with each other, and then the animal aspects, and all of it comes out at the Siddha level of the gift in the relationship. But then when you step into the Siddha aspect, it goes beyond a specific form that it has to be localized in, and it starts to become a love affair with the whole, with a prayer, a cosmic orgasm, I guess you could say. But this isn't that Siddha. It's not bliss. So I don't want to use the word orgasm, but it's that interconnectedness. So you start to have a relationship at a Siddhic level. But at the shadow aspect of the Siddhic level, you're literally a vehicle for the whole to come through and experience everything in life, and everything in life to experience the whole through you. But that's just happening naturally. It's not like you're trying to do anything. But as you step into the gift level of the Siddha, of that aspect, you start to be able to consciously give of that level of relationship to other creatures around you, and what it literally does is incites their evolution as a result of it. And then as they respond to you, it creates a more evolved experience for you. And so that's kind of the sensitization level of the Siddha in terms of relationship. And then at the Siddhic level, that becomes very mysterious, because that's your direct connection with Source, and how you become an expression of Source, and how everything becomes an expression of Source back to you. Does that kind of answer your question?
For sure, but this is a super deep journey. Like that, all of that feels so real in the journey that I was recently having, and that I just let go of. Mm-hmm. And to me that's the ultimate life experience. But when someone isn't wanting to go on the journey with you, maybe it was just a projection, and but for some reason I feel like this is the journey I'm to go in with someone, is to be in super deep fields like this so that we can help evolution come along. But I need a little bit of help in my evolution too with
Yeah.
whatever who I relate with, though.
Yeah, in the sense of relating, a lot of what we do through these meetings definitely expresses a lot of the Siddhic aspect of the gift in terms of relationship that we experience. It's not really a relationship, it's a relating. And it can also tap into authentic Siddha spaces in terms of relating. And there's other life codes where it can go into deeper places. But what I see, just as so far what I've seen with these meetings is we're relating together in a way that's symbolic of truths a lot, and we become symbolic of truths that can come through us, and we relate with each other, and we can become enlivened by that sharing. So I can even apply it in this collective sense. That's mostly what I see here. And it does slip into authentic Siddha spaces, but it's more like the upper end of the Siddhic intentional conscious heart space, more than anything else, at least through this particular life code of necessity, which is I think a beautiful thing, because it's a very refined way of having an excuse to relate together. We're having a party, but it's a very different kind of party, I guess you could say. And we're all a party to it. Anyway, my silly humor.
Steve would enjoy that, my friend. That was not the same person I'm talking about.
Anybody else have anything they want to share? If not, that's cool. We can just close it. Otherwise, if there's anything else, again, questions or just any sharing. I mean, it was a pretty good session. It was pretty effortless tonight, and everybody seemed to tap into each space rather. We're all becoming kind of pro at this.
I just want to say thank you, everyone. So nice to be here with you all, be in this space. I do love this. Friday's always Friday morning for me. Friday morning lunchtime. Yeah, it's nice to just drop in and know that you're all here, and now we can just work through all this stuff together. It's really cool. So thank you.
Yeah, and I'm really grateful to all the three of you, because you are my three most consistent and and I know you guys, you girls, not guys, you girls really must love this space and what happens here for you, because you're pretty much consistent every week. So I really appreciate that. It's what's keeping this alive. Without you guys, I would probably just go off into other things and not do this. But it's you ladies who make me keep showing up here and doing this, because it's very real, and I love it, what we do. It's very sacred to me.
It's a really great space. Thank you, Dharmendra. I really appreciate our little group here as well. And for me, just to let you know what it does for me is, like, I'm really curious about the full spectrum of humanity and how we may come from shadow to gift to illumination, but also, and so, it's like a study in that through myself and hearing everyone else and knowing about the spectrum of the gene keys so deeply that we experience it every week. But also, it's kind of like, relief and being able to speak about what's happening and what we're going through, at least for me. And I think it allows space for me to move on in places where, maybe I would be holding on because I didn't have anyone to communicate it with. So the fact that I'm able to communicate this to our small group, and, I think it's kind of universal what's going on, but if I can let go a little bit more and be a little bit more relieved that I'm not alone in this by sharing it. So thank you.
Thank you. So Nancy, unless you have any ultimate thing you'd like to say, we're about there.
I just woke up.
You just woke up. Oh, were you taking a nap?
Yeah, I didn't mean to. I just laid down, and next thing I knew.
Well, it's like 10:30 there, isn't it?
I guess so. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot later. I wouldn't even be up now if it was 10:30.
Wow, thank you, Nancy, for joining. That's so cute. You must have
That's,
heard
that's
us in dream time.
yeah, that's cute. Okay, everybody, I'm going to that's the end as far as the recorded version goes.